And welcome to our audio and video podcast brought to you by Cheney Federal Credit Union, serving their members' financial needs since 1951. Head coach Beau Baldwin joins us this week. Coming off the ball game against Montana Western last week, Coach, there were a lot of good things on offense, but also some sloppiness. I know some mistakes you want to correct, penalties and turnovers.
Yes, there was. That was definitely the case, and I felt it, especially in that second half. I would have obviously, preferred that we finish better, in terms of putting the ball on the ground, because I know in the future we may not, be able to get away with, that type of play. But at the same time, those are great teachable moments too. And the fact that they're happening in game 2 and you're still able to find a way to win 41-9 and come back and teach off those, I'm okay with that. I know I'm not okay with what happened, but I'm okay with the fact that, we're able to come back and I believe strongly that guys will respond, and hopefully it is something that we can learn a lesson even through a victory. So, but then again, once you go back and watch film, there were a ton of positive things. Like I said, I was talking about on the radio show last night, you start reassessing your goals when you're at a certain percentage in the red zone and third down and some of the things you're doing, that are maybe above and beyond where you've ever been after 2 games. I know they are, so you start kind of readjusting them and continuing to shoot for even higher levels, and we're doing that right now as a team.
And you might expect some of those third down numbers, some of those red zone numbers against a Montana Western, but you had almost as good a numbers, in fact better, in some areas against Sam Houston State.
Yeah, and so that's, to come out and do that game 1, it says a lot about the mental toughness of our guys, about the ability to go through a fall camp and not just assume, okay, well, it's a game 1, they're going to be, they're going to be off in these areas, but to truly grind through a fall camp and get to a point where even in game 1 we're performing at a high level in a number of areas. That says a lot, about our guys, in my opinion, their work ethic and their mental toughness, as much as anything else, as much as talent and everything else. So again, but at the end of it, we know we just have to keep going forward and working to find ways to get better, and we know we have an incredible schedule in front of us. So starting out with this week, obviously.
Defensively, missing Ronnie Hamlin in that game, missing a bunch of other guys that play a lot for you. So you had to play a lot of new guys, and yet you still only gave up 1 touchdown and only about 260 or so yards of offense. So defensively, what'd you see?
I thought we did a lot of things well. There were a few times I thought they were able to extend some drives where I think we could have been a little bit better. And you saw that we still can continue to be better tacklers, and that's something hopefully as the season goes along we'll continue to get that, because sometimes tackling is you can work on it in drills, but it's a rep you may not get as much in fall camp, because it's a fine line. How many times are you going to actually tackle each other in fall camp? Some programs don't do it at all. We don't believe in that, but there is more tackling that occurs in games than you ever can really simulate in practice, true live tackling. So hopefully that's something we'll keep hitting it in our tackling circuit and do certain things to keep getting better there. But no, there were a lot of positive things out of our defense as well. There's things we need to work on, but I love the fact that we have 4 interceptions in 2 games, which is huge. So we have guys that are out there that are flying around, and Coach Graham and the staff are putting them in position to be even more aggressive and make plays. And I think that's big. I think those type of numbers, what you're doing on third down, what you're doing in the red zone defensively, and definitely what you're doing turnover-wise, are much bigger than total yards. Especially in this day and age of football, those numbers mean a lot more than where you are total yards wise. So those are some of the things we're continuing to focus on as a defense.
4 true freshmen playing on the defensive front right now for Eastern. Usually the offensive and defensive fronts, you try to redshirt those guys more often than not, just because they usually have to pack on some pounds or maybe take a few pounds off depending on their body type. But I think that speaks volumes to the recruiting you and your staff have been doing, that you've got 4 guys that can step in and play at a high level. Marcus Sagan in the last game had 7 tackles, 2 for loss.
Yeah, Marcus played great, and you're right. It's I think the defensive staff, the offensive staff, the entire staff has done a great job in recruiting, because just because it's a D lineman doesn't mean that the initial contact wasn't made by an area recruiter first and got the ball rolling, and then, Coach Graham and Coach Sawyer, take that over and work towards, recruiting that player. But yeah, we've done a great job, combination of evaluation. You talk about the D-line, Coach Sawyer does just a great job also, not just with the evals, but with the development. And those are the two biggest keys at our level in recruiting. You're not always beating 5 other schools on a guy. At the highest level, you get that blue chipper and, okay, now we got to put out the red carpet. We got to beat these 5 schools or whatever it might be. It's more, we got to eval. We got to find something in certain guys that maybe other teams aren't recruiting. And then once they get here, we have to develop them. And you say, how do you develop? Well, I think even in a short time like fall camp, you say, you develop them. They're true freshmen. They've barely been here. But even in that short time, Coach Sawyer has them ready between practice 1 and practice 22, or whatever that is before we hit game week, to be ready if we are going to play you and not redshirt you. And we've proven that, at the D-line position, over the years. This is the largest number, but it's definitely not the first group. I mean, you saw it last year with a few guys. You've seen it all the way back to Jerry Sayon, some different guys that have played, and will probably continue, because you almost have to play true freshmen with as many guys as we're playing at that position as well. That's the other piece of it. It's hard to have, when you play 10 guys, it's hard to have 10 vets that are all just ready to play within your class. So it'll continue to probably be that way, and it's a good thing.
This Saturday, University of Washington, you've got a ton of Washington players, and the vast majority of those guys are Western Washington athletes. So I'm sure a lot of those kids grew up as Husky fans. You yourself grew up in Western Washington. So how important is this game, not just necessarily because you want to go 3-0, but because you're playing the flagship institution of the state?
It is. It's special. I mean, it has a different meaning than even other Pac-12 games we've played. And I felt that in 11, and I feel that again when we get a chance to play them here in 14. You have over, I think 52 or 53 of our guys are from that Puget Sound area. Then, 70% of our team is from the state of Washington, or over 70%. And then most of our coaching staff is from the state, and, a number of them from that part of the state. So, yes, I can remember going to Husky games, watching Husky games, just everything that encompasses that. It makes it a special trip and a special opportunity for all of us involved. So it's going to be a lot of fun that way. But at the end of it, just kind of like what you said, once you get away from that part of it and everything that goes with it, it is still another ball game on the way towards, big goals throughout the year. And but this is part of the process. This is game 3. This is the prep week for game 3, and that is part of the process towards some long-term goals down the road. And once you get out there playing, you kind of forget about all the other stuff, and now it's 11 on 11, and you're playing the game.
Does the fact that you've gone into Oregon State and you've gone into Washington in the past and Cal and some of these places, does that take some of the maybe intimidation factor out of a sold-out 65, 70,000 seat stadium?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a factor at all. I mean, I don't think from a stamp now I think it could be a factor in terms of you have to be on point with your communication. You have to be on point with certain things that are different than what you're used to. But from an intimidation standpoint, I don't think the number of fans is that's not gonna be a factor for our guys. It really never has been, since I've been here, and our guys have handled that well, and I think our staff has handled that well going into those moments. Now, can they be a factor in terms of being tough to communicate, tough to hear, tough to operate? Well, sure. I mean, that's what teams want in a home crowd. You get that at our level with Montana or Montana State or different programs, and obviously now, our crowds, are getting to that point where it makes it tough on opponents, and, from that standpoint. But I don't worry at all about from an intimidation standpoint. We have to understand that, one, we're playing an incredibly talented team, and 2, you're going to have this atmosphere that is different than what you're used to. So we have to work on things in practice to simulate how to operate in that type of atmosphere, so it isn't shocking once you get there. That's the thing I don't want. I don't want them to get there and not feel like, they haven't experienced some of that in practice, and that's a goal with some of the things we do in practice.
Siler Miles is going to be their quarterback this week. Reportedly, does their offense change, do you think, with him at the helm rather than Lindquist?
I don't know schematically. I mean, they'll do a few things differently schematically, but it definitely changes with the style of play with the two guys. There's no question about that. Their style of play, I think, will definitely be different. And I mean, he's going to get out and he's going to hurt you with his legs as well. I mean, he throws it well. He's got a strong arm. He's incredibly athletic, and he will break the pocket and get out and try and do some things and do some damage with his legs, which you really didn't see last week. So that's a big difference for us. We know that, and we have film. We have film watching him play. His style, it wasn't with the same staff, but you can still see his style of play and what he likes to do. So it's actually we have a little bit more of a leg up than we even did game one that way. You have a game from this year to look at. You have some film from last year of a lot of their personnel. So it's going to be something. It's going to be a challenge regardless of who that quarterback was, just because, like I said, you're not just playing a Pac-12 team. To me, you're playing a Pac-12 team with very good Pac-12 talent. There's a reason they were ranked in the top 25 to start the year. They have very good Pac-12 talent coming back. So those are going to be the challenges, along with, like I said, regardless of who the quarterback was. But yes, I have a lot of respect for him as a quarterback, and I think he's got some abilities, kind of outside the box type stuff that you have to be ready to defend. Defensively,
maybe their strength of their teams in their front four, particularly the big boy in the middle in Shelton.
Yeah, I definitely believe he's he can change a game. He can change certain things you're trying to do. He can, and when you have a good D tackler nose, sometimes, they can do that. And it can filter all the way through your entire D and really mess with an O. So we have to be, on point with him. We have to do a great job with him. We have to, and because it starts in that middle. It starts in the guts of it. But outside of that, they say the strength of it's there, and that's fine, and taking nothing away from them, but they have some athletes in that. Those linebackers are athletic, and they're good players. They're really good players, and they're athletic at the same time. So that's going to be a little different than some of the crews of backers we've seen, in terms of what they can bring to the table, and a very good secondary. 21 jumps out at me as being one of the best, but the rest of them can play as well. So it's going to be a tremendous challenge in terms of all three levels. That's a Pac-12 D-line, that's a Pac-12 linebacker, and that's a Pac-12 secondary. And you say that, well, yeah, they're in the Pac-12, but sometimes you play those teams where maybe they're a little down in certain areas, and to me that's not the case at any level on their defense. And I think that showed in Hawaii. They were able to get stingy in the red zone, and they were able to do some things really well.
Coach, thanks for the time. I know you've got a lot of work preparing this week, so best of luck to you on Saturday against the Huskies.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Larry.
That's head coach Beau Baldwin, and our podcast and video cast brought to you by Cheney Federal Credit Union.